Imagine an army equipped with machine guns and trained soldiers waging war against a horde of unrelenting foes. But here's the twist: these enemies aren't soldiers, they're emus. Yes, you heard that right. Welcome to one of the most bizarre and comical chapters in military history, Australia's Great Emu War of 1932. This is the amazing story about how the Australian military took on a flock of emus and lost. Let's set the stage. The year was 1932, and the world was reeling from the effects of the Great Depression. Australia was no exception. To reward World War I veterans and boost agricultural production, the government offered ex-soldiers parcels of land in the remote regions of Western Australia. These men, many without prior farming experience, toiled to cultivate wheat and raise livestock, hoping to contribute to the nation's recovery. However, they faced numerous challenges: poor soil quality, inadequate rainfall, and plummeting wheat prices. As if that weren't enough, another menace loomed on the horizon, one that would test their resolve in unimaginable ways. Enter the emus. After their breeding season, approximately 20,000 emus migrated from the inland to the coast, passing through the newly established farmlands. To these large, flightless birds, the cultivated fields were a paradise, an endless supply of food and water. But to the farmers, the emus were a living nightmare. The birds trampled crops, damaged fences, and consumed precious wheat supplies. Desperate and at their wits' end, the farmers sought help from the government. Letters poured in pleading for assistance. The situation was dire, livelihoods were at stake, and something had to be done.
The government responded by deploying the military. Minister of Defence Sir George Pearce authorised a war against the emus, thinking it would be a quick and decisive action. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery was tasked with leading the mission. Armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, Meredith and his small squad set out into the outback confident of victory. But the emus were not to be underestimated. On the first day of engagement, the soldiers encountered a group of 50 emus. As they opened fire, the birds scattered in all directions, making it nearly impossible to take them down. The emus' speed and erratic movements rendered the machine guns ineffective. Only a handful were killed. Undeterred, the military planned a new strategy. They set up an ambush near a dam where hundreds of emus were spotted. As the birds approached, the soldiers waited until they were within range and then unleashed a hail of bullets. The gun jammed after a few rounds and the flock scattered once again, leaving only a few casualties behind. Realizing that mobility was an issue, Major Meredith decided to mount one of the machine guns on a truck, a moving platform that could chase down the emus. But this plan backfired spectacularly. The rough terrain made aiming nearly impossible, and the truck couldn't keep up with the swift birds. At one point, the truck crashed through a fence, bringing the ill-fated chase to an embarrassing halt. As days turned into weeks, the soldiers grew increasingly frustrated. Reports began to surface in the media, turning the military operation into a national laughingstock. Headlines mocked the army's inability to defeat the emus, and politicians began to question the use of military resources for such a venture. Despite expending over 2,500 rounds of ammunition, the official tally of emus killed was a mere fraction of the population. Major Meredith wryly observed, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world." The emus had not only survived but had effectively outmaneuvered the Australian military.
By the end of the campaign, it was clear that the operation was a failure. The government withdrew the military, leaving the farmers to fend for themselves. The emus continued to ravage the crops, but the absurdity of the war had at least brought attention to the farmers' plight. In the aftermath, the government offered bounties for emu skins, encouraging civilian hunters to take up the cause. This method proved more effective and less humiliating than military intervention. Fencing subsidies were also provided to help farmers protect their land.
The Great Emu War remains a legendary tale in Australia's history, a blend of tragedy, comedy, and irony. It serves as a cautionary story about underestimating nature and overestimating human ingenuity. The emus, with no formal training or weaponry, had managed to outsmart a modern military force. It's a humbling reminder that sometimes, brute force isn't the answer and that the natural world often has the last laugh. Until our next story, be well and stay curious.